If you're anything like me, you'll decide to start something one weekend, but at the first sign of any difficulty, you abandon it and move on to the next shiny object. If you look back at your past year, did you manage to finish anything you started? If your answer was no, don't worry, it's not your fault. You just didn't have the right strategies. So here are 6 proven strategies that you can implement in 1 minute each to finish everything you start according to science. Yes, of course, we will use instant gratification to help us, and this video was inspired by Finish What You Start, a collection of personal tips by best-selling author Peter Hollins, who has studied psychology for over a dozen years. Hi, I'm Liz. I love reading, self-improvement books and implementing what I learned, so this channel is all about that. And to start you off, we have the noticeable cue. U of Penn economist Katie Milkman developed the hypothesis that distinctive cues to perform an action will increase people's tendency to follow through with their intentions. So, to confirm this hypothesis, participants were instructed to first complete an hour-long computer task. After this task, as they left to collect their compensation, one group of participants were told that they would see a basket of paper clips at the compensation collection area. If they picked up a paperclip and took it with them, $1 would be donated to a food bank. The other group, on the other hand, was told that the basket of paperclips would be waiting by an elephant statue. The result? 74% of the group who were told about the elephant statue remembered to get their paper clips, while only 42% of the other group who were not told about the elephant statue remembered their paperclip. Basically, having the very distinctive, very noticeable visual cue of the elephant statue made it easier for students to remember to complete the simple task. So if your motivation is to create a successful business so that you can retire your partner, your 1 minute hack here is to put a picture on your desk of your partner right in front of your computer. And to make it even more noticeable, make the picture frame smell of their perfume or cologne. The cues we use can be spread across our 5 senses in imaginative and creative ways. And remember, the more noticeable your cue is, the better. This is the first of our 1 minute hacks to increase the likelihood of you following through with your goals. Have a distinctive and noticeable cue that reminds you of why you're chasing your goals in the first place. Next, we're going to use instant gratification to help you finish what you start. In behavioral economics, there is this concept called time inconsistency, which helps to explain why we procrastinate. Time inconsistency says that all of us have 2 selves, a present self and a future self. These are completely different people with different desires that do not overlap. Let's say you have a report to finish writing. Your future self wants that report to be finished, duh. However, to get that report finished, only your present self can take action. But your present self wants rewards now. It doesn't want to wait to see the results in the future. So it wants to watch Netflix or YouTube instead of finishing the report. This divergence between the present and future selves is what leads to procrastination. Now, to beat procrastination, we can use the concept of temptation bundling. Again, hats off to Prof. Katie Milkman for this. What this does is combines the needs of both the present and future selves. Here's how to do it in 1 minute by making 2 lists. One side contains your guilty pleasures, what your present self wants now. The other side contains things you need to do for your future self. Then figure out creative ways to link both lists. For example, if you want to watch TV, make sure you work out at the same time. Or if you want to get a pedicure, get your report done at the same time. Or if you want to go on a holiday, remember to bring 2 to 3 books along with you. What happens here is that you give yourself instant gratification in the present while also achieving goals that benefit your future self in the long term. Here's an actual experiment run by Katie on temptation bundling, and you'll see how effective it was in getting participants to exercise more.
Struggles. I ran a study at Pottruck Gym to see if temptation bundling works. I recruited about 200 gym members to participate in a 9-week study and randomly assigned all recruits to one of 2 groups. In the temptation bundling group, participants received a loaned iPod and selected 4 audio novels from a list of books known to be highly addictive. After selecting novels, participants completed a 30-minute workout while listening to the beginning of one of the novels. But if they wanted to hear what happened next, they would have to come back to the gym where their iPod was locked and waiting for them in a monitored locker. In a control group, we also had participants complete a 30-minute workout at the beginning of our study. But instead of receiving audio novels, we gave them an equal value gift certificate to Barnes & Noble. The question was then, does temptation bundling increase exercise? To find out, we compared the average frequency of gym visits among temptation bundling group participants and control group participants over our 9-week study. The exciting news is that temptation bundling increased exercise rates by 50% in the first 7 weeks of our study, amounting to about 1 extra gym visit every 2 weeks.
This is the second of our 1-minute hacks to help you finish what you start by using instant gratification in temptation bundling to make achieving your goals a little bit less painful. Next, if you're a masochist like me, you can always use fear to scare the shit out of yourself to get your ass off the couch. Here's how it works. Let's say you find $10 on the street. How would you feel? Chances are you'd be pretty happy for a few minutes, then you'd move on with your day and forget completely about it. But let's say you lose $10. Again, how would you feel? Now, instead, you might curse yourself for doing something so careless. According to psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, the pain you feel from losing something is psychologically twice as intense as the joy you feel from an equivalent gain, and this is the phenomenon of loss aversion in behavioral economics. Now, how do we use loss aversion to finish what we start? It's simple. Let's say you want to go to the gym twice a week for the next year. When you're paying for your gym membership, make the 1-minute decision to pay upfront for the entire year instead. Or let's say you want to learn a new skill in the next year, like learning to play the piano. Look for a personal tutor, and instead of paying per lesson, make the 1-minute decision to pay upfront for the entire year. Or let's say you want to read 52 books in the next year. Take 1 minute to call a friend up, give them $1,000 and tell them not to return it to you until you finish all 52 books. This is how you use loss aversion and fear to your advantage to finish what you start every single time. Now let's talk about how to remove distractions with our next 1-minute hack. The author, Peter Hollins, brought up a study conducted in 11 European countries on organ donors. The data showed that countries that automatically have their citizens opted in to being organ donors had on average more than 95% participation. However, when the default choice was not to be an organ donor, the average participation was just 15%. This shows that people just went with the option that required the least effort. It takes effort just to opt in. It said nothing about their actual intention to be an organ donor. A default option is one that usually requires the minimum amount of effort. Countless experiments have been conducted on this, and this is known as the default effect. So if your default is getting distracted by social media when you're supposed to be working, add a layer or friction between you and your distraction. Take 1 minute to log out of all your social media accounts, delete the apps, and then turn off your phone. So the next time you mindlessly pick up your phone to scroll social media, the default effect suggests that this will no longer be your default because turning your phone back on, re-downloading the apps, and then logging back in now requires a lot more effort. This is how you use the default effect to remove distractions when you're trying to finish what you start. The next 1-minute hack is something you need to remember, especially on hard days when you feel like you're not making any progress, and this is the projection bias. The projection bias is when people falsely project their current feelings onto their future feelings. Let's say you just started something new, like a new YouTube channel. Right now you feel completely overwhelmed and stressed because there's just so much to learn. Then you think about future you. You imagine that you feel this exact same way, equally overwhelmed and equally stressed. And then you start to feel discouraged. When this happens, simply take 1 minute to recall the projection bias. Remember that there's absolutely no correlation between how present you feels and how future you feels. Your current feelings are not how you will feel about something forever. In fact, chances are, if you keep at it and you keep learning, future you will be much more experienced, much more knowledgeable, and much happier. This is how you get by on your hard days, especially when starting anything new. Now, if all these 5 hacks don't work for you at all, there may be a deeper problem we have to solve in the form of psychological roadblocks. These are internal unconscious mechanisms in our psyches that act as barriers to following through. When following through with anything you start, the 2 main roadblocks are fear of failure and perfectionism. If we act, we may fail, but if we don't act, we can't fail. Fear of failure is thus an act of self-preservation. Perfectionism, on the other hand, stems from insecurity. We believe we aren't good enough, so we keep perfecting but not progressing, like what Winston Churchill said. So the next time before you give up on something, take 1 minute to ask yourself, if not for fear of failure, rejection, or imperfection, would I be giving up? If your answer is yes, then that means you simply got bored or this new thing you wanted to start isn't for you, and that's perfectly fine. You don't have to finish every single thing you start. But if your answer is no, then clearly this is something you care a lot about, and you need to just tackle your fear head on by using the other 5 hacks in this video. I'm a big fan of these 1-minute hacks, so here's another 6 of them that will transform your life completely in 2025.